At 18,000 feet over the Solomon Islands in August 1943, Lieutenant Richard Bong's world turned into chaos. His wingman's P-38. Lightning spiraled into the Pacific below, shredded by enemy fire. 3 Japanese Zeros had ambushed them from above, and now Bong was alone, 1 Zero locked onto his tail. He pulled a hard right bank and poured on full throttle, textbook defense. But the Zero held the turn tighter, its guns nearly in range. With only seconds to live, Bong made a decision no training manual had ever endorsed. He rolled his P-38 completely inverted and shoved the stick forward, diving toward the ocean upside down. Blood surged into his head, his vision turned red, and for 2 terrifying seconds he couldn't see his instruments. When he leveled off at 12,000 feet, the Zero overshot, out of position. Bong had survived and accidentally discovered a maneuver that would redefine air combat in the Pacific. What Bong stumbled upon defied everything pilots were taught. Instructors warned against negative G flight. It could stall engines, damage airframes, and even knock a man unconscious. But in the deadly chess game of the Pacific skies, theory meant little when survival was measured in seconds. The Japanese Zero was a masterpiece of lightweight engineering and agility. It could outturn every American fighter at combat speeds, and in early battles, kill ratios favored the Japanese 3-to-1. American pilots, trained to fight traditional turning dogfights, quickly learned those tactics were suicidal. The Zero owned the horizontal circle. American aircraft, heavier, better armored, faster in a dive, had to find another way to fight. The answer came from desperation. Pilots like Major Thomas Lynch of the 39th Fighter Squadron realized that rolling inverted and diving, later called the split S, could turn the tables. Lynch first used it intentionally in April 1943, diving his P-38 from 20,000 feet to escape 8 Zeros. The Japanese pilots couldn't follow. Their aircraft weren't built for sustained negative G flight. Lynch turned his escape into a counterattack, shooting down 2 Zeros and teaching the maneuver to his squadron. Soon, word spread across the Pacific. There was no mention in manuals or directives, just late-night talks in ready rooms, veterans quietly telling rookies, "If a Zero's on your tail, go inverted and dive." The split S worked because it violated expectation. When an American fighter dove inverted, the Zero pilot assumed it would climb or turn, moves he could easily counter. Instead, the American dropped like a stone, using gravity and speed to break contact. The Zero's fragile structure and fuel system couldn't handle that kind of stress. And the P-38's twin Allison engines, unlike carbureted single-engine fighters, kept running under negative G loads. It was a brutal, disorienting maneuver. Pilots felt blood flood their faces, their vision turned crimson, and for a few seconds they flew blind. Flight surgeons on Guadalcanal documented burst blood vessels, headaches, and red-streaked eyes, but those men lived to complain about it. The math was simple. A few seconds of agony versus certain death. By late 1943, the maneuver had spread across the Pacific like an underground secret. P-38s, P-47 Thunderbolts, F-4U Corsairs all used versions of the inverted dive. Colonel Neil Kirby told his Thunderbolt pilots bluntly, "If you try to turn with a Zero, you die. Go vertical." The heavier American fighters could dive faster and survive higher G pullouts, using brute speed and power to escape. Marine Squadron's flying Corsairs refined the move further. Their aircraft's rugged frame and powerful engine made them perfect for it. Major Robert Gaylor of the Black Sheep Squadron drilled it into his men. "It's not a trick, it's survival," the Japanese noticed. By late 1943, Zero pilots reported Americans fleeing inverted, but they misunderstood the tactic. The inverted dive wasn't retreat, it was a reset. American pilots used it to disengage, climb back, and attack from advantage. When Japanese pilots tried to follow through the maneuver, their planes shook apart or lost power. In one battle over Leyte Gulf, Lieutenant Colonel Thomas McGuire dove inverted through 18,000 feet, pulling over 450 men, while the Zero chasing him disintegrated under stress. The tables had turned. The Zero, once unbeatable, was now optimized for the wrong war, too light, too fragile, and trapped by its own design philosophy. As American pilots mastered vertical combat, Japanese losses mounted. Their new aircraft, like the J-2M Raiden, came too late, and Japan's training pipeline collapsed. By 1944, rookie Zero pilots faced American veterans who already knew every trick, including the inverted dive. The kill ratios flipped. The once dominant Japanese air arm was shredded by a generation of American flyers who had learned to survive by rewriting the rules mid-flight. The legacy of those desperate maneuvers didn't end with the war. The split S and negative G pushovers became standard elements of post-war air combat training. Jet pilots in Korea used the same principles against MiG-15s. F-86. Sabre pilots talked about rolling under pursuing MiGs, the same tactic Thomas Lynch pioneered in 1943. By Vietnam, the U.S. Navy's new fighter weapons school, Top Gun, was teaching negative G breakaways as core doctrine. Today, F-16s, F-18s, and F-35s are built to handle negative G flight effortlessly, but the idea remains the same. When under fire, do the unexpected. The most remarkable part? None of this came from engineers or official manuals. It came from exhausted young men in cockpits, fighting for their lives over the jungles and oceans of the Pacific. Their improvised tactics, born from fear, instinct, and courage, reshaped fighter doctrine for generations. Richard Bong, America's top ace with 40 victories, survived because he mastered vertical combat and wasn't afraid to go inverted when it counted. Thomas Lynch, the man who first turned the maneuver into a deliberate tactic, was killed over the Philippines in 1944. But his innovation outlived him. Every modern fighter pilot who rolls inverted to break an enemy lock carries their legacy. They proved that survival in air combat wasn't about following the rules, it was about rewriting them in the sky.